Hello, and welcome back to another episode of COAGG Conversations. I just got tongue-tied then. That's probably because I'm in the room with some absolute gaming development royalty in Australia. Please join me in welcoming the amazing Chantal Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is an honor to have you on today, as you are the first female game developer that we've had in this series. How does that feel?
I feel very touched, a little bit sad. I'm like, we need more rep, but that's half the reason I'm here is blaze a path, blaze the trail.
Definitely, and we're all about trailblazers here at Confessions of a Gamer Girl, that's for sure. I have to start off by just asking you, how have you been? What games have you been playing?
Weirdly intimidating question in my life of desperately trying to cobble any personal time for myself that I can amidst mad game development and game conferences. I've been well. I managed to escape PAX Australia, Gamescom, and South by Southwest Sydney without getting COVID, unlike almost everyone else I know.
Amazing.
But I did pick up like a little bit of a bug, so I'm slightly recovering from that. It was my birthday yesterday, so I had a lovely day. Thank you. But yeah, Sarah, I'm in a pretty good mood. Got things going on the game, exciting things as usual. And yeah, as for games I've been playing, actually a bunch lately. I've managed to scrabble some time together. I've been playing a lot of games with my son, actually. He's been telling me he needs more personal quality time with me. So we've been focusing on the multiplayer.
What kind of games?
I'm not much of a Minecraft person. I loved it back in the day, but I'm just, I'm a bit over it. So Minecraft and Roblox are like kids' choice games these days, but I just cannot handle any more of the same. So I've been leaning into a little bit, not obscure games, but maybe obscure for like a 9-year-old. So I'm like, I will play with you, but we must play Dirt Starve. Oh, we must play. Ark Survival Evolved. We've been really into that.
Yes.
We're having a great time. Got my husband in on it. So there's some family survival going on. In order to relax, to go to sleep, I've been playing some Legends of Runeterra, which is the League of Legends. Sorry, my cat is desperately trying to crawl on top of me right now.
That's totally fine.
I'm sure that happens all the time on this podcast.
Yeah, look, we've had it a couple of times, and I'm sure a lot of our watchers and listeners can sympathize with your plight of owning a cat.
Absolutely. It's Gamer Girl rite of passage, I think, is to be destroyed in game by your own cat. But yeah.
I'm yet to go through that. Maybe I need to revoke my my Gamer Girl card because I don't own a cat.
Oh, not yet. You just haven't had some strange demonic fairy being end up on your doorstep and adopt you yet.
Yes, one day that will happen, and one day I will just say, "Okay, you live here now," and that sounds pretty on brand for me. Oh, amazing! I actually really enjoy playing as a family, and I love hearing people's stories about how games bring many generations of their family together. It's always really, really touching, and I've seen like. Sometimes it can look a bit gimmicky in the media, like just the way they portray it. But honestly, it is a lot of fun. And now I have 2 daughters myself, and now that they're a little bit older, it's just so nice. Like there's a bit of fighting between the two of them because they're 4 and 7. But that happens with or without video games, really.
Yes.
um,
They probably get along better with video games in the mix, if I had to guess. That was the case with me and my brother.
the girl, what have the girls have been playing? This morning they were on the Xbox and they were playing, I think it's a Pixar action adventure game, but it's local co-op, and my youngest was screaming. She was like, "I'm gonna get you," and like just she's full raging. I'm like, if you're raging at a Pixar game, I I do wonder what your limits are.
Oh God, it reminds me of I allowed my son, and I sort of regret this, but at age 3, I decided to let him play one game, and it was Disney Infinity. And it's because
Oh,
it came
okay.
with those little like toys that you could like
Yeah.
actually play with. And I was like, it's kind of magic that like, you know, I can be like, here's a toy, and look, now it's in the TV and you can control it. And I'm a
Yeah.
really big fan of magic. So it's like, I want to share magic with my child. So I let him play Disney Infinity. He got really into it. And yeah, I'm not much of a buyer. I don't buy things very often, but our 8-9-year-old TV died. And it was a big deal for me to get a new one. Ended up dropping $2,000 on it, which is way more than I intended to spend. And brought it home. And within 24 hours, my son was testing out the TV by playing Disney Infinity. He dies in the game. He's 3 years old, keep in mind. He dies in the game. And he just stands up and screams, and he marches over to the TV, controller in hand, and he just gives it one solid punch. He punches that TV, and just immediately, like in the movies, a giant crack just like kind of appears and then funnels out, and the TV starts flickering colors, and boom, dead, completely dead. There's no warranty that covers that. So yeah, I didn't get a new TV for 6 months. I was a
Wow.
little bit, yeah, that was our screen-free era in
Okay.
our family's life.
Jesus,
So,
ways
yeah.
and okay. Well,
That is my confession.
that you know what
I
I
birthed a rage machine.
we haven't had anything broken just yet.
There's still
But
time.
yes, there's still time, but I saw my 7-year-old kind of, she had the Switch in her hand and she just like, just dumped it like in anger. And I was like, that's okay. You can be without it for 24 hours if you're going to do that. So this is cool.
I'm sitting here like, oh, this is that girl mom, boy mom dichotomy I've heard about, where I'm like, we've been through about 3 iPads, couple of consoles.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's all about respect. So, yeah. Speaking of,
Solidarity.
yes, stay humble, gamers. Speaking of respect, Chantal, you are the founder and creator of We Have Always Lived in the Forest. You are obviously a major part of setting the tone, the direction for the games that you create. How do you find yourself feeling in that role? And when I mean respect, I mean, do you find it challenging to command respect in your role?
That's very interesting. I'd say it's kind of like a dual question. Two-parter.
Okay.
Yeah, as to how I find the role. I didn't actually mean to be a game developer. That was never my intention. I've always been a writer. I've been a lot of different things in my life. I was actually in school getting my double degree in anthropology and English, planning to go get my PhD and become a kind of practicing anthropologist
Mm.
when I just needed an outlet. And I thought, I'm going to make a game. So it was very much a hobby project with a friend, and there's more to it than that. I didn't even say I'm gonna make a game. It was more, I had an amazing idea for a game, and I thought, holy shit, I need to make this.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how the hell to make a game so I can make this game. So but it was still very much a creative project. It was just, I am a creative. I've always been a
Mm.
creative. And, when the muse drops something special in your lap, you recognize it and you have an honor bound duty to kind of utilize the gift you've been given. But nevertheless, I never imagined it being kind of a professional thing. It was just more of a cool art project, the way I write stories or, paintings or whatever else I do. So, yeah, it's been strange ending up in this position where we do have a lot of eyes on us. We have a community, we have media, we have the government involved. I'm, all over shows all over the world, and that's very cool. But yeah, it's been a strange transition, a lot of learning curves. In terms of the vision side, driving the project, that's always come very naturally, very easily. The benefit of the Muse given project is that I know exactly what the game should look like, how it should feel, how it should play. There's always a clear path forward in the design and the execution. But in terms of respect from, say like leading a team, I've definitely, I do believe I've had to grapple with things that people who aren't women or from a marginalized gender don't particularly have to grapple with, whether that's due to, social dynamics or whether it's due to our gender conditioning, certain mannerisms that I have that I've brought to leadership that may not, be construed as the typical leader role. So, I've found that, particularly in hiring, I've had some interesting conversations. I do try, I subscribe to the try to be the dumbest person in the room, at least in, in the niche you're trying to talk about. So I'll have hiring interviews with people who are more experienced than me. And I have had encounters that were very much like, ooh, I don't think you would have said that if I weren't a woman. Or, I've even been kind of treated as if, my passion is like emotional or, I had
Yeah.
a,
Wow.
yeah, it's been
That's really
very
powerful.
weird.
Oh my goodness.
I had a candidate when he kind of implied that I might not know what I was doing about a plan that I had described to him. This is a very, illustrious designer. Most people will have heard of him. And I was very flattered that he might be interested in coming onto the project. So when I interviewed him, he tried to shut down kind of a core idea of the project and a core plan. And I didn't take it personally at all. I was like, oh, I need to communicate why this is important and why I'm placing such a big importance and resource on this. And I thought I gave what was quite a passionate intellectual communication of my idea, and I was just excited. I was like, yeah, and this is why I think it'll be so great. And then at the end of it, I think I've given a lovely speech. At the end of it, he kind of sits back and he goes, "You don't have to get mad." And I was like, "What? Mad?
Wow.
like, not in one single second did any feeling approaching anger enter into,
Oh,
like, that talk I had, and I realized, like, there are literally men out there who construe a woman's, like, passion and, like, kind of, like, a very, like, strong drive as, like, aggression. And it was really
yeah,
fascinating
yeah.
for me to bump into kind of like I'm like, "Wow, I can be perceived really differently depending on what kind of, you know, cultural, social constructs people have in their heads." So
I
yeah, I've had
yeah.
interesting experiences.
I was on a all male Xbox centric podcast for about 16 months, and we had no video. It was just audio. And I feel like I had that same experience where my passion or something that I was excited about came across as anger. And I think a lot of people think I'm a bitch because of that. Like, because they couldn't see my face, and I smile a lot when I talk, and
Mhm.
I think probably just not having that facial gesturing, human communication is so most of it is non-verbal, right? So I without that, I feel like my legs kind of got cut out from under me, and yeah, that's it's so upsetting, but also really powerful that you recognize that, and it's such a common experience with women in power and within the gaming community. And it's honestly something that gets touched on quite a lot. Like on the podcast last week, Ellie was talking about how she feels like she's not relied upon for gaming news, or like her credibility for providing the community with news as a female gamer is not as credible as a male giving that news as well. And I was like, wow, that and that all comes back to that respect and those social norms that we've been accustomed to. Meanwhile, you're just walking around the place like, you know what, this is my show, and if you don't want to participate, then you're the one missing out. Like, and
Mhm.
I feel like you just drive yourself so much in ways that probably make a lot of men in the industry uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've something I've found is I think that there tends to be discomfort no matter what version of kind of interaction or projection you have. So, um, I've struggled to implement deadlines on
Okay.
my team, and I've been really, I'm trying to change that work culture, and there are a lot of reasons for it, but I've had to like grapple with, okay, how do we change a culture? What's gone wrong? Um, like, how did we arrive in this place where
Mhm.
this is such a struggle? And I've realized like it's kind of like a few different things. It's like one, my leadership style, and I think this is quite a, like a woman socialized leadership style is like very much like empathetic, compassionate, trusting.
Mm.
We don't want to micromanage, and we want people to let them know that we respect you. We trust you to get your jobs done because we're so sensitive about, not being trusted
Mm.
constantly to be good at our jobs, to get our work done. And so like I bring those experiences to my leadership where I'm like, I know how I don't like to be treated and how I would like to be treated. Therefore, I will treat everyone else the same way. And then, so I find myself, I'm not a hard stickler. I'm not like, I need this to be done. And, what happens if it doesn't get done and blah, blah, blah. Um, And I think that that kind of gets perceived as, I don't want to say weakness, But you're not taken as seriously as you might
Mm.
otherwise have been. And so like I find that really interesting because it is kind of like a dominance based dynamic there. It's like, you know, corporate culture and workplace culture can be so, we've really established these dominance rules of the workplace where it's like, here's the boss and they tell you what to do, and you kind of have this level of fear around not getting things done, or like what might happen or what they might do to you if like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't pull it off. And people kind of like, they learn to work to that. So like when you take that fear away, I think people haven't learned back up. Not people, but like, you know, a lot of people, especially people used to fear-based leadership environments, don't really know what to do with themselves almost, or like don't have a guiding star when you say, you know, I'm not gonna harm you if,
Yeah.
you know, things are going wrong in life or wrong with deadlines. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been identifying that as very much a kind of like, if I weren't a woman, I don't think I would have taken that approach. And now I grapple with, you know, like being more of a stickler and being harder. And, you know, I grapple with, does this make me less myself? Am I having to become someone I'm not in order to um, gain the necessary respect, in order to get things done in ways that many men don't have to grapple with? So, yeah, it's been very interesting, especially because I recently had a realization that every person on my team is a man. And, like, by the way, I'm not calling out my team or pointing any fingers at anyone
Yeah. It's just a fact.
individually. Yeah, I'm just like, generally speaking, we are all socialized in various gendered ways. And so,
Mm.
you know, it's very much a kind of like widespread um osmosed thing.
I that really does, that representation of males that you have in your particular team is pretty accurate to what it does look like on the educational level. So I've had the pleasure through PAX and South by Southwest to engage with a lot of student devs, and the the majority, from what it seems, from what I've seen so far, you know, females do tend to lean towards more of the, you know, 3D artists, animators, things like that. But if we're talking about the coders and those really, uh, I wouldn't say they're as creative, even though they do have creative elements, but it's less than 10% of those students are female.
Mm.
And
Can I
it's,
just interject and say I
of
prefer the
course.
term woman versus females? Just I come
Oh,
from
okay.
a forensic anthropology background, and female is very like biological, whereas like women is inclusive gender wording. I
Okay.
get very sensitive about it. I apologize.
No, no, that's totally fine. Women, sorry. I find it hard to call 18-year-olds women though.
That is
So,
very fair. Yeah, I can understand
um,
that. Women and girls.
women at okay. Honestly, it was such a privilege to speak with these women and to understand that that representation, they're actually already being accustomed to being a minority within their own within their own education programs, and then for them to move into the business like yourself. I mean, yeah, and you don't get taught how to release your socialization. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah,
you
absolutely.
I can imagine probably it, if your leadership style isn't about fear, which I'm sure for a lot of women that's very difficult to even pretend that you can do that. I can imagine it would almost be more collaborative, as in, if it's not out of fear, like you're working as one for a common goal, like you should all be on the same page in understanding that we've created this goal around something that me as the leader has set. If you can't move towards that goal, and if you're not with that goal and passionate about it, then that's where we're going to come into an issue. And I need passionate people who are invested in that goal. So you need them to buy in to your goal, which is what you explained before. You're trying to get people to buy into your idea, but it still gets seen as aggression.
Absolutely.
That is wild.
Yeah, and that's why, I brought up that it kind of feels like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. No matter what path you take, it seems like something's always going wrong or something's always being misperceived. You're either too weak or you're too aggressive, you're too
Yeah.
this, you're too that. And then, if you want to change tack, if you were like, oh, I realize now that I was too passive and people were taking advantage, so now I need to be really strong, then people get really whiplashed and they're like, but, like, I wasn't expecting you to hold me accountable because you never did that
You did it in the
before.
past.
And like, this is such a sudden change, like, you haven't
Oh, I
given me any
live.
time to respect you. So yeah,
That's
I've been
wild.
at this a while now. And it's, I used to run a photography company, so I
Mhm.
founded that as well. So this is not my first rodeo, running a business, being a leader,
Mhm.
and interfacing on a professional level with, people either working for me or clients. And yeah, those experiences are very universal. That's why,
Mm.
I mentioned team just because we were talking about what is it like to like lead a team as a woman.
Mm.
But I learned a lot of hard lessons from running my photography business where clients who were men particularly would often try to take advantage of me, or push me or think that they could negotiate with me if they just kind of tried to intimidate me. I've
Mm.
had, as many people have had when they've worked in client facing roles. I've had men get aggressive with me and threaten me and try to intimidate me into giving them a better deal or what they want or doing extra. So it's all a process, and there are really interesting power exchanges and power dynamics that go into professional relationships, whether that's professional as leader, and colleague, or whether it's, kind of like a contractor versus client. You're always navigating these perceived power differentials, and I think it is difficult for women who typically aren't too interested in the power exchange, to have to constantly navigate social interactions with people who are interested in the power exchange, who actually
Mm.
uh, do thrive on attempting to dominate or win the situation. So you're constantly doing this weird dance.
It's extremely exhausting.
Yes, it really is.
And I don't think, I think men either think about it or they don't, and they don't care that if they don't think about it, which is kind of wild to me, because I think at the end of the day, most women just want to get along and to be peaceful as they can be in their teams, and especially when they're in places that they're creating, or they're working in teams. I think everyone just being happy and loving what they do. And my goodness, God forbid, you know your boss wanting you to enjoy what you do and be happy, and willing to work with you and communicate with you on how you can create that reality together.
Yeah. A
Goodness
lot
me.
of people don't respond that well to it.
Wow.
It's interesting, and I fully believe, I never think this is the fault of the individual. I think that
Mm.
our society conditions us to work in this way. And I talked about workplace culture, but really, we should really be pointing to schools, because that is absolutely the culture, and the skills that have been facilitated, where kids are just like, they're given deadlines and they're given a task, and if you don't do it, then something bad will happen to you, whether that's like you'll fail and get in trouble with your parents, or you'll fail the whole course and you have to do it again. Maybe you get homework detention for not doing your homework. Ask me how I know about those. Um,
Oh,
I had
yeah.
my
Yeah.
high school record. But yeah,
Oh my
for
goodness.
I had a rough time in school. And yeah, I mean, schools, I say I had a rough time in school. I also had some of the best times in school.
Mm.
My favorite teacher ever was a man. So I'm a big fan of making sure there are, men as well as women,
Mhm.
and other gender representations
For sure.
included. I think it's really healthy to have that spread. I'm really, really overjoyed when my son actually does have like a positive male role model to look up
Mm.
to outside of my husband, because it's quite rare for children. Um, it is rarer and rarer for men to go into these kinds of, um, you know, not necessarily caretaking, but teaching positions,
Nurturing.
supportive. Yeah, like these nurturing
Mm.
positions. And I think partly because society has really started to demonize it. For some, given the last 20 years of reckoning with so much sexual assault in spaces where, people have trusted, um, men. And I apologize, I'm not trying to turn this into a man bashing session.
No, no, you're
But
fine. It's okay.
yeah, there's just I understand why there is so much
Yeah,
hesitation, but I think it's a real tragedy for our society as
it is.
well that, um, men are, like, often afraid to engage with children. Like, I
Mm.
think kind of the uncle role is so important. I think it's so important for an adult man to roll around wrestling a kid on the floor. Some of my favorite memories were like, just having like dumb wrestling fights with uncles and friends, and that kind of like masculine energy can be
Risky
really
play is good.
joyful. Oh yeah,
Risky play, yeah, risky
I'm a
play is
huge
fantastic for
fan for risky play.
cognitive development in children. It's obviously something we don't always need, but yeah, I don't ever remember in engaging in risky play, but I can see that when my daughters play with their dad and they wanna, like, tickle fight, it's just something that they wanna do, and it's got nothing to do with anything untoward. It's just they're just having a good time together, and it's just fun. And yeah, it's
Absolutely,
important
and
for child development.
physicality as well,
Mm.
I'm trying not to co-opt, you know, this conversation into a whole thing, but,
No, no, no. Understanding
yeah.
our bodies and the limits can
Oh, so important for
definitely.
kids, but my personal feeling is that it's a real tragedy that we've moved away from, like, a physically when I say physically intimate, I just mean, like, a society that feels okay to touch each other, from as an anthropologist, I've studied, childhood development across cultures, and the way that, adults engage with children across cultures and general cultural things. And it it always becomes so apparent to me how important physical touch is for all humans. You know, hugging, touching, holding hands, sitting close, dancing, lots and lots of things. It's really good for your brain generally. Just the touch of another human often can stimulate all sorts of happy chemicals. Um, and I'm really glad that people who are uncomfortable being touched no longer have to deal with kind of unwanted touching that has been present for a really long time. But I think we've lost something really important in that transition. And like, I want to find out how we can have both. I want to find out how we can have kind of like a physically affectionate society without fear and like weird, like
Connotations?
formal dynamics, like it,
Mm.
while I understand the need and the respectfulness of, asking before we touch someone every time, it's part of me that feels it's incredibly unnatural to be like, hey, every human I ever meet, is it okay if I'm a very handsy like talker and person as well. So it's like, oh, whoops, I accidentally like touched your arm as I went in to tell you something cheeky. Um,
So do you
yes.
it's really clear that you have, like, a lot of really interesting, deep, meaningful, spiritual, beliefs. How do you find implementing those into your creative work, like dark web streamer? Are any of those present?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole dark web streamer itself is, it's kind of like a psychological horror game in which you're exploring the internet and you're doing rituals and you're coming in contact with the supernatural. So, something I always say is what the internet is the internet is people.
Mm.
There is no internet without people. And to me, really, the internet is a phenomenon of human beings achieving psychic communication. I think that with the invention of the internet, we actually became post-human. We can communicate across incredible distances psychically now, like just with our minds and our hands or some kind of interface. So, a lot of my kind of work in anthropology and studying humanity, which I'm a writer before all else. I've been a writer since I was 5 years old. So studying the human condition has been my life's work. And so in engaging with the internet, I've really just engaged with human psychology and kind of like the art of non-physical communication. And I'm also really interested in the way we try to bring physicality into this incorporeal space and, things like emojis, emotes, the way people, they'll be like asterisk, like hugs you, asterisk. All these little things that we do, or, even like graphical interfaces or music, bringing kind of like sensory experiences to each other across long distances when we are far apart, is a big thing. And yeah, like spiritually, I try really hard to draw across all sorts of different cultures, including non-Western cultures,
Mm.
for things like lore or just general influences in the game. So I spend a lot of time reading different books about spirituality, spirits, demons, folklore, etc., from places all over the world, and bringing those in and roping them back into all sorts of different facets of the game.
It sounds like such a multifaceted way of creating a game. You're bringing together what resonates with you. And I suppose that lends into your, your musing of actually creating this game and understanding that you really wanted to do this and you want to do the best job that you can. And it's clearly obvious with honestly everything that you do. And when you're in that game, it feels rich. Like it feels there's something else going on here. There's most definitely. And I've thoroughly enjoyed playing it. I've played it twice now, even though I don't normally play horror games.
I'm always so flattered when I hear that. I'm like, thank you for breaking your like whatever, like breaking the fast to come partake at my table.
I think I'm just stepping outside of my comfort zone is something that I'm trying to work on. I've probably been working on it like unconsciously for a while now, but yeah, having games like yours, and I can kind of reason with myself because I'm like, look, it doesn't look like real, right? It's I feel like it's a lot more accessible because of the way of the art style. Is that that's how you always envision the art style, or did you want to like bring it into more, into reality a little bit more?
Yeah, no, I always envisioned the art style like that. I'm a big fan of theater of the mind. And so allowing people to kind of, so much of Dark Web Streamer is not about me telling a story or the game telling a story, because it's all procedurally generated, so it's the system that generates your story. But I think of it more as a narrative sandbox. So what I want to do is give people lots of different pieces to play with, lots of different dolls and accessories, and give you kind of like enough meat to be able to like build a meal on. But I want the true story to come from you. I want the story that you piece together in your mind to be the canon story for you. So yeah, I try very hard to kind of like not give too much detail and allow room for the kind of construction of like your mental landscape. And I wish I could claim that I was smart enough to have plotted out everything, but I've been really surprised in how many people have come and told me that they actually don't play horror games. They're really afraid of horror and they're kind of like intrigued by it, but like they haven't been able to engage with it because it's too scary or whatever. And I have a lot of those people come to me and say, I was able to play a game, or I really want to play a game, or like this is like, it allows me to experience this without it being too much. And I appreciate that I can stop and walk away when it's too much. And yeah, so like for me, I've always been a horror creator. I've always written horror stories. I make spooky things. I read, watch, whatever, all the horror.
You are a bit of a spooky gal.
Yes. Forensic anthropologist, like, literally burns on my thing. Your skeleton is my specialty. But I, like, I think about how really early on when we kind of started gaining a following, I had so many people come to me and say, "Are there gonna be jump scares in this game? Because like, I really wanna play it, but, like, I can't play games with jump scares." And, I don't really get scared. I watch so much horror in pursuit of being scared because it's so difficult for me to be afraid, and I love that feeling, but it's so hard for me to access that I actually spend a tremendous amount of time trying to find something that'll give me that feeling. So that was never on my radar that, like even a small flash of a thing on a screen in a text game might be too scary for some people. But
Okay.
when I heard that, and I heard it like more than once, I started thinking about accessibility and horror. And I'm very passionate about horror's ability to provide catharsis and solidarity. I'm not into gore. I'm not into, like ultra violent horror. I'm really into psychological horror. And what that is to me is like horror's whole thing is confronting things that make us feel afraid. And like, I know that sounds really obvious on its front, but when you think about what that is, like when you think about like the purpose of this medium is for us to explore something that frightens us in our souls. It makes us feel uncomfortable. It's something we don't like to confront. It's something that makes us feel alone or intimidated. When you actually pick up that piece of art and you sit with someone who has really spent time with it intellectually and unpacked it and presented it in a thoughtful way, it has this really amazing ability to make you feel less alone in the world. So whether it's exploring domestic violence or mental illness, the threat of physical harm or of loss or of death, grief, the worst things we can imagine happening to us actually happening. Actually spending time with confronting these ideas, I think can be really, really powerful for us. And I think it's actually really healthy for us to do sometimes. A lot of society is about kind of escapism and not confronting big, scary feelings, but horror does do that. And, I bring all this up just because what I ended up doing was just implementing a little option, or I don't think it's in the current build, but it's top of our accessibility list. It's just having a toggle on or off for jump scares. So like my default design has been, jump scares because I like to make scary things and that's scary. But putting, being like, we want everyone to be able to sit with this experience. And if that means, getting rid of some silly little flash, like what a small, easy, wonderful thing we can do to
Yeah.
bring people into a space that I consider really sacred, allow people who wouldn't ordinarily be able to access that kind of catharsis or confrontation to actually come and like be part of that experience for once, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that, because I'll be turning that option off. I will not.
Jump scares? No.
It's like I think probably because I can experience that feeling that you are chasing just by a vibe. Okay, and I experienced it the first time I saw the artwork. The eyes,
Thank you. That's very
just the
flattering.
eyes. And I was like, it's kind of like I was looking at it and I was like, but I don't want to look away at the same time. So yeah, it's piqued my interest in a way that I didn't expect. And for everyone who's listening, you can wishlist this on Steam.
You
And
actually can't.
you can't.
We
I
don't
thought
have
you
a
could.
Steam page. It's so funny.
Wait, oh my God.
I know. Look, I
Okay.
say we're very punk. You
Good,
can
good
go to
thing
our
this
Twitter.
is not live.
Well,
All
it's
right,
too
51
funny.
minutes. Doomcutie was an
That's
idiot.
the best
Fantastic.
exchange ever. No, I think I like talking about how we're punk because, yeah, Steve and I had a fight, and now I refuse to put our page on the store until someone makes me. But right now, I'm the boss, so no one can make me. So we'll see. This is
Okay.
how much I trust our game and our
Okay.
community and our ability to transmit ourselves across the internet is, you know
Okay.
what? I don't think we need a Steam page. I don't think like eventually we will when we're trying to sell the game. But I trust that people will carry us.
Okay. Well, hopefully your relationship with Steam does get better. If not, I'm sure someone else will come and pick you up, because I think, yeah. Or I think that the community will be, if they haven't already seen this game, I think they'll be pleasantly horrified. Can I say that?
Please do. My favorite two words combined. I'm
Well,
actually gonna run with that as the tagline, just like dark web streamer. Pleasantly horrifying.
oh, incredible. We have touched on so many things I didn't think that we would. So I really appreciate you being so open and just and so candid with your chat with me today. I've reflected on a lot of things, and I've resonated with a number of things. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure our listeners do as well.
Well, thank you for the good conversation. Yes. I always love a good thought-provoking conversation. Yeah.
Lots of thoughts today.
Thank you for inviting me to chat. It was very lovely. It was very aesthetically pleasing as well, between yourself and the pretty overlay I was admiring before.
You know, I yeah, I've really leaned into the cute, but I mean, it is in my name, Doomcutie. So yeah,
Need a little more doom in there, but it's fine. I can help with that if need be. Or is that me? Is that why I'm here? I bring the doom.
Yeah. Look, I think every gamer girl out there has the potential to bring the doom and the cute. So
I agree. We need to be balanced whole women,
for
you know? It's
sure,
kind of
for
like the
sure.
beautiful witch vibe.
Yes, beautiful witch vibe, for sure. All right. For those of you who don't know where to find you, I will put it
Yeah.
in the description, but where can they find you, and what will you be up to for the rest of 2023? Because we're almost at the end.
Oh, yes, we are. So you can find Dark Web Streamer on its website, darkwebstreamer.com. You can find us on Twitter at darkwebstreamer. And you're most likely to find us on our Discord server, which is linked on our Twitter. And we might try to drop a link in the description too. That
Sure.
is where we hold playtests fairly regularly if you do want to come try the game. And for me personally, I'm over on Twitter at ThoughtRise. Like, you know, the thinking going up. And as for what I'll be doing in the rest of 2023, actually, trying to chill. I went to maybe 8 different events, most of them overseas this year. I am very tired. My son is slightly traumatized from his mother being gone all the time. I will be leaving for the US next month to go visit family over in the United States. So yeah, I'll be doing that and hoping to bounce to Cuba to see my best friend who is also in games, and maybe I'll knock her over to you because we actually met playing Halo 2 about
Oh
18 years
wow!
ago now. Around the same time I met my husband playing Halo 2, actually. So we're a little
Wow!
crew. Yeah.
Amazing. So your husband is Australian?
No,
No?
he is from the United States, so we're going to go
Okay.
visit his family, and we met online when I was 15. He was 18, and he was a professional Halo player.
Oh.
Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so that I lived a very interesting life before I came into game development because I was on the the eSports scene, but the kind of the illustrious eSports scene that involved lots of sponsors and fancy dinners and TV shows and all the rest. So that's actually my secret history that I don't talk about very much, but maybe for another time.
Maybe for another time. I don't want to keep you for too long. But thank you so much again. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to you eventually releasing Dark Web Streamer and seeing what you come up with next, because I'm sure it will be just as amazing as your current game.
Yeah, I call it the generational trauma neighborhood simulator. So sit with that.
Looking forward to that. Happy to contribute any stories if you need any inspiration.
Love stories. Love them. We'll be taking all on board. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was lovely.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for listening on Spotify, and for our watchers on YouTube. You can find all the links to both myself and Chantel and her interesting game in the description. And
Pleasantly horrifying.
pleasantly horrifying. It's been just a pleasant experience, Chantel. Thank you again. And we will see you next time.